everybody, and welcome to Lifehacker. It's Monday, March 12th. As always, we're going to be looking over the news, some of our favorite posts, and answering questions from readers. So, let's get off with the news. Alright, so last week, there were a few things. Start off, Google Play. Google rebranded the Android market to Play. Tell us a little bit about that, Whitson.
There's not that much to tell. Essentially, Google had started extending the Android market to include things like music when they finally released Google Music and ebooks and things like that. And while those things are applicable to Android, they're also applicable to things that aren't Android, so it's kind of confusing to have the Android market be the place where you bought music for Google Music, even if you weren't an Android user. So they rebranded it, which was a good idea, but they rebranded it to Google Play, which is, in my opinion, the stupidest name you could have picked, because A, I have no idea what that means as a consumer. Even if I'm browsing on my phone, I have no idea that that's the App Store. You know, the market was very clear that that was where you bought apps or music or things, or, you know, on Windows Phone, it's called the Marketplace, same thing. It was just very dumb to me that they rebranded something that's very confusing. So it seemed like a good idea, but I don't think they really went about it the right way.
So has there been an update to the Android market yet?
Yes, some users are seeing it. I personally haven't yet. It's going to replace your market with a Google Play app. If you're on a Motorola phone, it's actually probably going to break your little market button in the app drawer. For those of you that haven't seen, Moto Blur has a little, just a little market icon on the top of the app drawer, so you can always access it really quickly. But of course, since it doesn't know what to look for when you have a new Google Play app, it's not going to work. It's probably going to take Motorola way too long to release an update for that. But if you just scroll through your app drawer, you can find the Google Play app just as normal.
So you would have preferred it were called
the Google Market. That would have made a lot more sense. I kind of don't love that name either. But like, just something that makes me realize, like, oh, that's the App Store. If I'm a new Android user, I have no idea what Google Play is. It sounds like something I really don't want. It sounds like Vcast, like Verizon's Vcast service. Like the first thing I would do would be like try and uninstall that.
Do you think it's the timeliness of this whole thing that caused most of the problem? Because, I mean, you look at iTunes, that has nothing to do with apps, but they just kept tacking more and more
iTunes is such
iTunes.
A well-known name.
Yeah.
And now it's called the iTunes Store. I mean, I guess on the iPod it's difficult. Like, we gave my grandpa an iPad for Christmas. He kept thinking iTunes was where he would listen to music. But it sort of is a similar thing, but iTunes is such a well-known name that I don't think it's as much of an issue as Google Play is.
For what it's worth, though, Whitson does not like change.
I don't like change. That's very true.
And my 2 cents, I think most people will be fine. They'll be like, oh, I need to buy an app. I'll open Google Play. I mean, like, everyone will adapt. It's not going to change anyone's lives too drastically.
We'll come back to this when all my parents and siblings and cousins call me and saying, where did my app store go? I'll let you know how many of them were very confused when I told them Google Play.
Yeah. Well, the thing that disappointed me the most was like, oh, I started reading or watching their steampunk video about what Google Play is, and I'm like, oh, this is great. And then slowly as it played, I realized this is exactly what they've already had. And they didn't, like you said, add anything.
Yeah. They introduced it like it was some sort of new thing.
I know, and I was like, oh, I wish there was a new feature. I think like the launch would have been more exciting had they done more than like offer Android, like discounted Android apps, maybe free Android apps. But, you know, for 49 cents, they have some good ones for 49 cents. I mean, like World of Goo is one of my favorite games. That was cheap. But
I think my biggest beef was probably that if you're a Google Music user, you'll note that Google Music, the URL changed from music.google.com to play.google.com/music, which broke my Google Music extension. Which actually was very trivial to fix. It just involved like
it's trivial, but like it does break a lot of things. It's like it would have been nice if they warned people.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they probably can't warn like every developer out there.
Or I don't understand why it doesn't redirect. That's the really absurd thing.
Well, it does redirect. I mean, music.google.com redirects to play.
Okay, so it's if you're using like the API or something, it wouldn't.
Yeah, it redirects rather than mirroring it. Which
Okay, so I
assume they want to do so you know this is where you should be going from now on.
Yeah. I guess that's fair.
But anyway, it's a change that makes sense. You don't necessarily love their implementation of it, but it makes sense.
No, I absolutely agree that it makes sense.
Google
I just thought
wants
the name
to sell
was
things. Honestly, I almost feel like if they had maybe I guess there's reasons why not, but like Google Checkout, which is like a brand that they have, Checkout's maybe a little bit too like money-ish, like to PayPal.
But that's what it is. It is like PayPal.
Well, that's what Google Checkout is. I'm saying Google Play isn't like PayPal.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah.
I'm saying, like they could potentially have tried to push it all in something like that, but that kind of... Obviously, I mean, from like a branding perspective, the idea is like play. It's like exciting. It's an action.
I don't know what I'm playing.
That's
the problem.
Games,
you're playing
music,
anything
you
want,
movies.
anywhere you want, Whitson.
Call me Google PR and I'll
seriously.
I'll sell you on it.
Whatever. Okay, fanboy.
Anyway, it is what it is, and ultimately, no one's gonna care. You're gonna use it. It'll be easy.
It looks the exact same as the market. You won't even notice the difference.
Yeah. In fact, that is the Android market. It was a clear problem. Android market.
It was when they
sell
first introduced
everything.
music to the Android market. I was like, this doesn't make any sense at all.
So anyway, Google Play out of the way. Let's talk about probably like the most hyped news of last week, which was the big iPad announcement.
Yes. The new iPad announcement.
The new
not
iPad.
the iPad 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think it was basically what everybody wanted to happen, in that the Retina display came to the iPad, which will be really interesting to see how this thing works in practice because it's a huge amount of resolution. I would be surprised if Apple released a product that was not capable of doing. I mean that would be slow. I mean, obviously they made upgrades to the A5 processor, now the A5X, so that it'll move quickly. It will be able to compensate for that huge resolution. But it's kind of crazy. I mean, I think this is although there aren't really any significant updates to the iPad because it's got a nicer camera and that's about it. The Retina display it has been wanted for so long since the iPhone 4 that this is kind of a big announcement for them. But I thought that more excitingly, the updates to iMovie, which look pretty slick in terms of being able to storyboard and all of that, and then iPhoto, which had some great retouching options. It seems like Apple's trying to push forward the software a lot and what you can do, and that Retina display makes it, I think, a lot more attractive when you're editing photos, especially because you have high resolution photos and they're always going to look really good.
Yeah. And the 1080p video recording.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Which is, do you guys? I feel strange recording like that.
Yeah. I saw someone at Christmas. I saw someone in the Grove, which is a big mall in LA, which you guys know that, but not everyone does. And they were holding up their iPad and taking pictures and recording, and it's one of the most awkward looking things. But I do so I think it is kind of weird. And I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but I feel like the important thing is having a camera on the iPad for video conferencing, which is Apple's been weird about this branding because they called the camera on the iPad an EyeSight camera.
Oh, yeah, instead of a FaceTime.
So, but I'm thinking the FaceTime camera is the one on the front, but the EyeSight camera is the one on the back.
Okay.
Still doesn't make any sense because EyeSight is supposed to be for video.
Exactly. It's just
but not now. Now our MacBooks have FaceTime cameras and not EyeSights.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so confusing.
They've rebranded.
And in a way, EyeSight maybe makes more sense if it didn't have this history of confusion because your eye line is going out. So
I think that that's probably a little quagmire they've gotten into with their branding for webcams.
I was just really
Today's
surprised
really
to see that.
branding gaff week in the tech world.
Yeah. And then the other thing, there was a little bit of a kerfuffle today about the quad core claims, which are actually like there's not much to talk about. Basically, a lot of people some people are a little bit upset that Apple was touting the quad core because it's quad core graphics as opposed to quad core processor, which there's a significant difference between the two. It does not have a quad core CPU.
Right.
It does have quad core graphics processing, which is relatively meaningless in terms of
the people who are using this thing they're gonna be like whatever.
So the thing people were upset about is I assume feeling like Apple was intentionally misleading people to think that it was a quad core processor as opposed to quad core graphics. Ultimately, no one cares anyway.
Yeah.
Whitson, you just wrote a lovely post about processing power.
Yeah, I did. We're at the point where, although I don't necessarily think this is true for mobile devices, though in Apple's case, iOS is just so well coded that the processing speed is a lot like computers in the sense that we've kind of reached a level of diminishing returns where I feel like faster, like, here's the only comment I have on the entire iPad 3 thing, or, sorry, new iPad.
Oh, yeah.
How quickly people forget that the iPad 1 is still an incredible device.
Yeah.
I'm using it, and I've never used an iPad 2. I obviously haven't used the third iPad. And everyone's saying, it's so much faster. I'm like, really? Because the iPad 1 is...
Yeah.
like, still perfect in my head as far as speed goes. I don't know what a faster processor could possibly bring me, except maybe I'm gaming.
All the better, though.
It's not exactly.
Bad, but I agree. Like, I only got the iPad 1.
Yeah.
And I was actually thinking about upgrading to an iPad 3 before the announcement. Mm-hmm. And then after, it's not as though I was expecting them to announce something like mind-blowing, but afterwards just sort of thinking about it, I was like, I don't play games on it. I don't like do anything that really needs the display. I think I would like. That's the main thing that I would
really
be into.
the main thing. But the speed,
but it's not $500 amazing if you already have an iPad.
Here's where it's not an issue of diminishing returns. It's if you've ever used any photo processing apps, or you've used anything that has to render out, I suppose, any movie, anything that's processing a lot of images to a file or whatever, or saving
like
it, or working with a lot of data. Yeah, the encoding will make a big difference. And also faster processors are good if you're using a third-party video playing app, like Good Player, for example, that will allow you to play Matroska files and other files in HD, which will hurt your battery, but nonetheless, it'll be able to decode it. But the iPad 2 can do that now. So, but I as I understand it, this A5X processor, in terms of the dual-core CPU, it's not really an upgrade. It's just the graphics, right?
I think so.
Okay. But what you're saying about the rendering being the exception for diminishing returns is the same thing. It's the same thing for computers too. I mean, because even if you're rendering lots of video on a computer, you are one of the only people that really needs to be upgrading, who would want to upgrade to the latest and greatest Ivy Bridge, whatever processor that's out.
But I feel like it's probably slightly more significant on a mobile device because I
think it absolutely is. And especially when you get off of Apple's devices and you get to something like Android that is can still be very slow and laggy, every processor upgrade is a major one. I just think because Apple's just done such a great job of...
Yeah. It's just so tight.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing, actually, this is very small that I would look forward to is and I don't know if this is going to be an iOS 5.1 related thing, but voice dictation.
Oh right.
Which I don't.
A little button in the keyboard.
Were they clear at all that will be added to all iPads, or is it just the new iPad?
I don't know.
So anyway, voice dictation. It's not Siri. Siri is not going to come to the iPad.
That was surprising.
I think that there's probably two things involved. I think one, Siri's not good enough. Mm-hmm. I don't think if it were like a huge hit, they probably would be rolling with it, but I don't think it's good enough. And two, Apple's bad at scaling like things that require web servers.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So it could just be a matter of like them not being ready.
Getting their store ready for the iPad orders the store was down for several hours and not functioning properly throughout the entire day.
Yeah.
You'd think they'd have a handle on that by now.
So voice dictation, it just adds that little microphone to the keyboard on the iPad, which actually I would love that way more than I mean, that's something I would use on the iPad, especially. A lot of people are really getting into using tablets as different consumption devices, but also for browsing the web and stuff. I still have a really hard time using it for anything where I need to type.
Yep.
It gets on my nerves. But on my phone, I'm trying to train myself more and more to use the voice dictation for sending a text or an email or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I'm always happy I did it when I do it because it works really well.
It does.
And I'm training myself to remember hey Whitson, can you remember to update that post at 3 p.m. period? And it's not hard to do actually once you start ingraining yourself to do it.
It is.
And
really
it's on the iPhone actually. I only do it when I'm in a place where typing isn't going to work well, in the car or something.
Yeah.
I'm sitting at a stoplight and I push the little thing and I say something.
I do the exact same thing.
But because I can type really fast on the iPhone because it's got a wonderful keyboard. But on the iPad, I don't want to type on the keyboard. And the voice dictation I love it.
Yeah.
Everyone should use that.
Yeah. I've started, I don't have real voice dictation. I don't have Siri because I'm still on an iPhone 4 and I don't have Android. but I've been using an app called Vocal with a K, which is really nice because it just listens to you when you're in the car, so you don't have to tap anything, which you could do with that Siri hack as well if you're jailbroken. But it really does help quite a bit to be able to, and that they have the ability to add punctuation. It's not always perfect. Sometimes it does make mistakes, but
so does the keyboard.
Yeah, but and then you have something to laugh about with your friend when you see them later.
Okay, so the other big thing announced, not that big relative to the iPad, but big for me because I really like it, is the Apple TV.
Yeah.
The new Apple TV.
I think this is a bigger upgrade, honestly.
Oh, well, the biggest thing about it is that it has 1080p now, as opposed to the 720p, which was the default output, or like the max output of the current Apple TV. And it's actually, and they've upgraded the interface. It looks a little bit more like an iOS thing. There's like little app icons and stuff.
Yeah.
The real bummer though is that there are still it's still not like App Store ready. Like there are no.
Oh, I didn't realize
but
that.
It does have Netflix, right? That's new, right? Netflix?
No, Netflix has been on since
Netflix
last year.
Oh,
why did I see that?
There are a bunch of like other third-party stuff on there. I mean, like I saw a lot of sports-related things in that screenshot.
That's cool.
And that seems to be at least they're slowly, but they're moving towards it.
It's a bummer that they're like taking their time as much as they are, because that's gonna be like the killer feature of it.
Yeah,
I think that part of the reason might be that maybe they're worried about like segmentation, where it's like they lose control of and Apple probably wants to make deals with distributors. So that they are also making money when they give their content to you.
Here's the other thing.
Maybe.
This is kind of off the top of my head right now, but I think of something like Google TV, where to browse the store and to like really use it, you kind of need one of those like little keyboard, really complicated remote controls.
Yeah, it's really not that bad.
Which just sounds like something that Apple would be totally against. And so I feel like they're probably going to try and figure out a way to do it where you're buying apps on your computer and sending them to your TV or something like that.
Well, I think
I'm trying to imagine browsing the App Store.
You can already do that, though. I mean, it's the same with the iPhone.
There you
can
go.
install something in iTunes and it'll automatically.
Yeah, I mean, there's already a remote for it.
No, I know, but it seems like I can imagine them being like, no, we gotta wait till browsing an App Store on the Apple TV wouldn't suck.
I don't know.
I think it'd be easy. I mean, you just you click around.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing as buying a movie.
Yeah, but you got to search and stuff. Oh yeah, I guess.
You still have it'll just be much more curated, and then there's more control. I mean, I just think this will be a killer hockey puck once once Plex is on it or something.
Yeah,
along those
and
lines.
it will. Basically, what will happen is it'll come out. It'll take a little bit, and the jailbreak will come out, and it will be super awesome. I love the second generation Apple TV that I have, and I've got it jailbroken running XBMC. It's $99. It's pretty great. It will play back 1080p files, but it outputs at 720p, but like whatever. I don't know the difference, and it handles them. It just doesn't. But anyway, the Apple TV or the third generation, the new Apple TV. I actually already pre-ordered it.
All right, well,
of course you did.
Did they update the processor in that? I mean, because that would
I don't even know, honestly, and it would be very good. But the 1080p thing, I assume they at least updated the graphics in some way.
Yeah, I'm just wondering because XBMC, the only thing that bothered me about XBMC is that the menus are kind of choppy.
But I'm not even sure that could even be like. It's probably a CPU. I mean, it's probably a processing thing. It could be a graphic thing.
It would be really nice if there was a processor upgrade and it fixed that, because that would make a huge difference.
There is actually an app called ATV Flash Black that's made by the people who do the jailbreak for it, for the Apple TV, and it is like $30, and I'm gonna test it soon, probably when the Apple TV 3 gets jailbroken. That is much more it like looks like you're navigating natively in like it's made to look more like the Apple TV, but it does a lot of the things that XBMC does. Anyway, $99 makes it one of the cheapest and best options for like a cheapo media center, and that can handle a lot. Still waiting to test out a Raspberry Pi. Those things are sold out.
Sold out so quickly.
The Raspberry Pi people are in no hurry to send me one for I don't know what reason. I'm like begging. But anyway, so the Apple TV also Also pretty cool, also exciting.
Yeah.
Actually, for me, more exciting than the iPad.
Yeah. You know, if it had apps, I would be more inclined to put
the
it
app
up.
thing
I mean,
is
that would be
definitely
huge.
Okay, and then finally, another just a relatively minor thing from the Apple event is iOS 5.1.
Yeah, which really doesn't do anything unless you're in Japan and want Siri. But for iPhone 4S users, if you've been having trouble with battery or reception issues of any kind, supposedly it's going to fix it. Whether that happens or not, that remains to be seen. If you're jailbroken, you might not be too excited to upgrade just yet because you'll lose your jailbreak. But for everybody, the one thing that's probably worth noting is that the camera button on the lock screen will always be there. You don't have to go out of your way.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
You know, though, that brings to mind, I installed, my iPhone is jailbroken, and in the course of installing something, it installed Activator, which is an app that basically you can set up keyboard shortcuts for virtually anything. And I set up the most awesome shortcut, which is triple tap on the home button, launches the camera.
Awesome.
Oh, that is nice.
It's way better,
That was
than
really
any
fast,
of the
too.
other. Yeah, check it out. 1, 2, 3, camera, bam, and it's just that is very smart to do. But like, I still like
easier,
that. Actually now, well, no, I can't do double. What I'd like then if they also had the camera there, but also did the media controls.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know if that's happening?
No, I don't. That wasn't in the release.
Because right now,
but
on the lock screen, you double tap and media controls and the little camera button come up. I would love it if they made
Media
that the
controls were
default,
just
so I could
always
do
there.
double tap to open the
Yeah.
camera as opposed to triple. But it's still, very cool.
yeah, and I mean, Activator is probably one of the lesser known jailbreak apps because it just gets installed with stuff. Usually, people don't go for it.
Yeah.
Everyone has
But
it, but
it's-
no one knows what it is.
I've actually
Yeah.
been meaning to post about that triple thing because I just think it's kind of awesome. It's way cool.
Yeah. Well, until then, we'll put. I think we have an Activator guide we can put in the show
Yeah,
notes, and go from there.
Cool. Okay, well, that's it for the news this week, so let's pop on over to the tips box for some questions. So Danny writes, "Hi guys, I've recently upgraded my phone, which has left my old smartphone obsolete. Do you have any creative uses I could use it for apart from just selling it?"
Well, I I like to use it for old video game emulation, so that's always my thing. But we have plenty of, especially if it's an Android. I mean, I don't know what kind of smartphone this is, but the Android phones, there are a lot of awesome emulators. I have an Android tablet just for that purpose. So I mean, I think that's a great way to like do something fun with it. But it also can be, I mean, you could use it for a PDA or like
XBMC remote or streaming
that's
music
another
to
one.
your
Or just
speakers.
Or just like a like the remote app on iOS that remote controls iTunes. Like you
yeah,
can
exactly.
sit it-
That's what
You
I
can
meant.
sit it
tons
next
of
to
good
the remote
remotes.
controls on your coffee table, and when people are over, they can just browse that for music and play music bag.
There's also something to be said for if you find that there's you don't find a clever use that you really need it for. Depending on how old it is, if it's not something you would get a lot of money for, like my old Motorola Droid, I could probably not get like $20 for it or something, or $50. If you don't have an old cell phone around, I highly recommend keeping a spare smartphone around, especially if you're prone to messing with it, rooting it and tweaking it, because I've been in a lot of even if you're prone to dropping it in the water.
Yeah, I mean, I just dropped my iPhone in the river the other day.
He did. It was very funny, in fact.
It just fell
To
out
me.
of my pocket, but it was fine. So
And it's particularly handy if you're with a service like a GSM, you can just pop
In a SIM card.
out.
Although
from one to the
reactivating
other.
a phone is also really easy if you're on Sprint or Verizon. I've never done it myself, but my brother has ruined a lot of phones in his day, and he always has to go back to using my sister's old pink Razor that has like ponies on it. And it's very humorous for all of us, but not so fun for him.
Yeah.
And so I still have, every phone I've ever owned. And it's really nice that if my phone breaks or anything happens, I can just pick up my old Droid and keep on going without skipping a beat. So if you can't find a clever use for it, don't necessarily sell it unless you can get some good money for it because it's useful to have a spare around.
A ton of options, and even something you load up with media and keep in your car that's like full. You play via USB or whatever your car likes to use, if it's Bluetooth or whatever. But
I've kept every iPod I've ever owned, and they all have different places in the house or in my car.
Lots of handy uses. It could be your recipe thing. You fill it with recipes. It's your kitchen thing. If you get crap on it, it's not a big deal because it's your secondary device. Okay, cool. So a Lifehacker from Macon,
Georgia.
It's like bacon with an M. Georgia writes in.
I wanted to know if there's a way to use my computer to review sites like the weather and maybe the most recent YouTube videos, sort of like widgets for the desktop. I've got a computer that I keep in my bedroom, and you just turn it on in the morning and kind of review the latest news headlines and stuff like that. But right now I'm opening up hundreds of tabs to kind of get through all that information. And wanted to know if there's a quicker way to get a summary of everything in one place. So I'd love to hear about that. Thanks.
Like a Chumby?
I'm still thinking of rhymes with bacon. Now I just want bacon.
I think what he's saying is, something like but like maybe like a start page.
So it sounds like there are a lot of things that can do this. Just like a web start page, like iGoogle. I don't know if anyone's even using iGoogle anymore.
I think people do.
It's possible.
I see people using it once in a while.
There are definitely a few things that spring to mind. Rainmeter is probably a really cool. If you're on Windows, Rainmeter.
Or Geek2 on the Mac.
Or Geek2 on the Mac.
Conky on Linux.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much those are good for like news and stuff like that, but I know Rainmeter definitely has a widget for RSS and a widget for weather and things like that.
You can do RSS on Geek2.
But you can't necessarily click links that will take you to the full stories.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Which you can do on Rainmeter. Anyway, Rainmeter's widgets for your desktop, very beautiful. Like you said, widgets. Or if you want something, if something browser-based is okay, NetVibes is a super awesome RSS reader, basically, where you can kind of create widgets, and you could probably do a weather one in the latest YouTube videos, and it's very configurable, and it looks amazing.
I also think another option worth considering also is newer things like, say, Flipboard, which isn't exactly, it doesn't sound like it's exactly what you're looking for, but it's sort of like it creates, in a widgety way, sort of like a front page that you can just sort of look at in a similar way. You wake up in the morning, you grab the newspaper and check out the front page.
There are a lot of different ways to do this, and they all are kind of different. Also, the Windows 8 beta is supposed to come out next week, and so if you feel like trying that, if you said it's just a computer in your room that if you're not using it for much, the Windows Metro interface probably offers a lot of cool ways to do that. It'll have a tile that shows your weather, and you can click on it for more info, and it'll have a tile with RSS feeds that you can then click on and scroll through. And
that'll be more of an early adopter work in
that
progress.
Would be an early adopter work in progress, but from what I see now, that's the only way I can see using Metro on the desktop is something like that, where I can wake up and see everything that I want to see, and it does look to be very good for that.
Yeah.
Did he say he's using a computer?
Yes, he said that there's a computer in his room that he would just like to kind of wake up and go see all of those things. So there are a lot of different ways to do it.
Well, there's actually, I wrote that heads-up display for the tablet that does weather, RSS, I think movie listings and some other thing.
And it's an Air application.
It's an Air application, so it'll run on
Windows, Mac, and Linux.
Does it still run on Linux?
Did they stop supporting Linux?
It's a whole. It's still. You can still get the old version of Air on Linux. It's really difficult to install on 64-bit Linux. It's still around.
Anyway.
Yeah, so that's an option. It's not great, but it can do those things. So that's something. It's what it was designed for specifically.
Okay. All right. Reader Kelvin writes in, I live in New York and I'm about to go to another job interview. However, they told me to bring 2 job references for my interview, but the thing is, I'm only 18. They know my age and they expect me to have more than one job. My question is, how can I come up with 2 references when I've only worked in one job? Should I lie? I don't know. Obviously, we all have to face this at one point in our lives where we have no experience and are often asked for references. I don't know how they do things in New York, but when I was first applying for jobs in Iowa, and you didn't have any experience, most of the time you'd use a reference who was someone who's known you for a long time, or maybe you've mowed someone's lawn or watered their plants or fed their cats when they're away. Basically, anyone who can attest to your level of maturity.
Perhaps some kind of academic advisor.
Yeah,
would be coming from a place of
someone from
respectability. If you've had
a
any
teacher.
internships, those would absolutely count. But if you haven't, then
Yeah, but lying.
I probably wouldn't lie.
Yeah, don't lie. That's never a good idea.
That could blow up in your face.
Yeah, whereas being honest, definitely. I mean, that does show a sense of maturity.
Also, you could, if you really want to, you could come out and just ask them, possibly too, depending on your
that's a good
relationship with them
point.
and how much you've talked to them, and be like, I'm 18, I'm just out of college, I haven't had more than one job.
But I can give you some examples
And,
of how I've worked hard in other situations. If you
and
like
so
those.
then and they may appreciate that.
I'm assuming Kelvin
Yeah.
is just out of high school. At 18.
Oh, 18.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Regardless, though,
forget how old I
same
was
rules.
been.
Same rules apply. So yeah, I think you're gonna be just fine, Kelvin. Okay, now we've got a question from Catonsville, Maryland. Maryland.
Question. Old laptops starting to die. The only thing good is the hard drive. How do I piggyback that hard drive onto another laptop or some other device to get the data off of it? Thanks very much.
Okay, so in case that was a little hard to hear, it's got a laptop where everything's dying. The hard drive is the only thing that currently is working.
It's
And
usually the opposite.
he wants to get the data from that hard drive onto another hard drive so he doesn't lose everything.
And there are a lot of very simple ways to do that.
Yeah, you just really, I mean, like, if you get an enclosure or just like a SATA to USB adapter, I mean, you just plug it in and copy the data over
Yep.
using some
You can,
tools.
and first of all, it's
Which-
if the hard drive isn't about to be dead, you can turn it into an external hard drive.
Yeah,
get
when
the
you're-
get
yeah,
the
when
data
you're done.
off with turn it into an external hard drive with an enclosure. You can buy those on Newegg or wherever. I
Yeah.
really like the ones Otherworld Computing. Those
Yeah,
are
I
my
was
favorites.
gonna say, yeah, because you can get, they have even USB 3 ones that are like $20.
And also, you don't have to plug them all into the wall, which is very nice. You can get them at macsales.com. They're not,
Yeah. And
they're
you
not,
don't have to
they're
have
not
a
Mac
Mac.
only or anything. They're my favorite. They've been very reliable for me.
Yeah, and
Not mad.
they have nicer see-through ones that are like better quality, but they
Yeah.
also have some cheaper ones that I have friends who use them and they're great.
Anyway, and then when you get the data off, you have an external hard drive.
So
Yeah.
basically,
So that's pretty cool.
Well, wait, how about in terms of actually cloning the data? Like I know on the Mac, I like Carbon Copy Cloner. There's also
Well, I
SuperDuper.
assume he's just trying to get some of the data off, but you could use
if
Carbon
you
Copy
wanted,
Cloner or
back up a
Clonezilla.
second, you're
Sorry.
not explaining what this will do.
Right.
If you don't want to lose your operating system, if you want to clone the entire operating system so
Yeah.
that your new computer is just like your current computer, then you would use a cloning software to try and clone your entire drive to another hard drive and then use that as your system drive.
And I've never tried to do that between two different computers.
Well, in this situation, he still is going to
Oh,
need
I
to
have.
get. We're assuming that nothing in the laptop works but the hard drive.
Right.
So he's still going to need to get the drive out.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
never mind.
So
Yeah.
one way or another, you're going to have to open up your hard drive or your laptop and
pull the drive
pull
out.
that drive out.
Which shouldn't
and
be that
then-
scary considering
there-
everything's broken anyway.
There is one thing though, if we're dealing with a Mac, I guess, and he doesn't want to. Well, if it's broken and doesn't operate at all, I don't know if you could do target disk mode.
Nope.
But if it is working enough to do target disk mode, as in like it'll kind of boot, you can just hold down the T key when you're starting up your Mac and then plug it in
With
via
Ethernet cable.
FireWire. You have to have FireWire.
Oh, it doesn't work with Ethernet anymore?
Oh, does it work with Ethernet?
I thought it did. Anyway.
Whenever you do it, it's always the FireWire symbol. So I mean,
It's
maybe it
possible.
does. I've never.
At any
tried
rate,
that.
once the point is you get an external enclosure, you'll be pretty good.
So yeah,
Yeah.
basically you just
That's the
turn
easiest
your
way to do it.
laptop's hard drive into an external hard drive, and then you can access data on it. If you want to still use that system, the operating system, you can clone it to another drive and start using that.
With Carbon Copy Cloner for Mac or Clonezilla for anything.
So you've got a lot of options, and you're definitely not out of luck. As long as the drive's still working, you should be golden. Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so reader Adonis writes, I need to buy a new video camera for my work. I already have a Canon Vixia HF100. I want to buy another one for some 2-angle shots. I've heard that a lot of people are using DSLR cameras as camcorders. Can you tell me which one is the best for a median price? I also need to hook up multiple wireless mic.
Okay, I guess this one. This
This
is a
should
me
be you.
question. Right now, we are shooting on a Sony NEX5, which is not quite a DSLR. It's a mirrorless basically it's the same
Awesome.
thing. It's still an APS-C sensor, which is what you find in digital SLRs for the most part. It has interchangeable lenses. It's really tiny. The video quality is pretty good. The 5N, which is its successor, is much better, and that's priced very reasonably. Both of them are around between $400 and $700 with lenses or without. So that's one option. If you want to go the standard DSLR route, I'd look at one of the Canon Rebels, preferably one of the newer ones, and that will bring you up closer to the $700,000 range. Any of them that do video will do video pretty well.
I'm assuming 7,000 is well.
You said
beyond-
700
sorry,
or
700
1,000, not 700,000.
Yeah, sorry, $700 to $1,000.
I was like, whoa,
and then if you
just
get-
made a big leap in price.
Yeah. If you can afford $1,500 though, I'd go with the 7D, and then it goes way up from there. But the 7D is pretty much that is the best price point for high definition video with a DSLR. However, you are dealing with a camera, an HF100 and a DSLR are going to shoot very different looking video. They both use the same. They both use CMOS sensors, but one is smaller than the other. The HF100 has a pretty small sensor. I actually used to have one of those. It's a good camera, and it gets pretty good, sharp video, but it doesn't work as well in low light. It doesn't have the shallow depth of field capabilities that a DSLR is going to have, and it also just the color looks different. It's not, and shoots in a different format. It records in a different type of H.264, so the video is going to look different when you're cutting in between it, and so it's going to be kind of weird having them together. If you wanted to sell your HF100 and get some DSLRs to and have two cameras that way, then that's an option. But it's or you could just get another one of Canon's more recent upgrades to the HF100, which would be fine, or just get a really cheap HF100 on sale.
Have you answered? I also need to hook up multiple wireless mics.
Well, on the camera note, I think it's also important to note that some DSLRs won't be able to shoot video for a long period of time.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we have that problem.
We have that, so make sure that it can shoot more than 7 or 12 minutes of video at a time, because that's a common problem.
If that's necessary for you.
If that's necessary. I'd also mention that just because something is a really good still camera does not mean it's any good at shooting video. I have a Nikon D90, which is a very nice camera, but shoots some of the crappiest video. My point and shoot
to be
shoots
fair
better
to
video
that
than
camera,
the Nikon
though, that was the first one to do it. For a DSLR to have
Oh,
video,
was it?
so-
Okay, well,
Yeah,
anyway.
the Nikons are better now, but
If you're shooting video with it, make sure you're looking for something
better.
that shoots good video and not just a nice DSLR.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what he's asking. Is for
Right, I know, but it's just something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I
they're
generally,
not all created equal when it comes to video and images.
Yeah, I would say the Canons have generally been better for that, but Nikon has gotten better. It used to be terrible, now it's not. But anyway, in relation to the mics, plugging in wireless mics, you can get a BeachTech audio adapter. That's pretty much the standard for plugging in any kind of microphones to any camera that just has a standard headphone-sized mic jack. And then it will give you XLR inputs, so you can plug in the bigger, more important mics, not more important, more powerful, more professional microphones. And so that that's one way to go. The other way to go is to get a portable recorder like the Zoom H4n or whatever they have now, the later versions of that, the Zoom recorders, which you can plug in mics to that, record audio separately, and then sync it up in post. So those would be the two options. Or also you could technically attach the Zoom via just standard 1/8 inch headphone jack from the Zoom to the camera, and then use that as your adapter. But BeachTech tends to be better for that stuff because it's made directly for it. So that's a lot of information, but that should do it.
Should get you somewhere.
All right, now we're gonna take a quick show and tell break. Whitson's got a cool cord to show us.
And that sounds not at all
Yeah, it
sexy.
sounds not cool.
Guys, look at this awesome cable I got.
It's
It's actually really cool.
incredibly cool.
So we featured this on the site, and it is essentially a cable that when you plug in your iPhone, they also make micro USB, so Android or whatever other device you want to charge. You plug it in, and the cable actually lights up when it's charging to show you that your device is charging. And when your device gets to 66% charge, the flowing lights that look like electricity will slow down, so you know that your device is mostly charged. When your device is fully charged, the lights will turn off completely. So what's really cool is that you can, kind of set your phone to charge on the table, across the room or whatever, and see how much charge it has without getting up and going and turning it on. Plus, it looks awesome.
Yeah.
It's just very convenient to be able to see these things.
So for those of you listening, basically, you plug it in. I'm just going to give you a picture. Close your eyes. Imagine you plug in your charging cable, and then you plug your device into it, and there's a stream of like blue lights that just sort of like a movie theater lights that are just sort of tracking along it, pointing as the electricity flows from your electrical source, whether it's your computer or the wall, into your device, and as it needs less, the flow trickles to a slow.
Yes. And you can get them in different colors too. I think there's blue, green, and something else. So it's called the Dexim Visible Green Charger, and you can get it. The prices kind of vary. Amazon had them selling for $15 for a while. I think on the site they're like $30 or $40. It's probably not that much different from what you would probably buy it from Apple, but you can probably search around and find a pretty good price. But that is my show and tell for the day.
Very
One of my
cool.
favorite new gadgets.
Thank
Plug
you.
it in.
All right, so it's time for the downloads of the week. Adam, you're going to kick us off with Wake Up Light.
Wake Up Light. Okay, so Wake Up Light, you might have heard of some... We posted about an eye mask that you wear, and it wakes you up in the morning by simulating a sunrise by pushing... by brightening the lights at whatever time you want to wake up. And those things are, obviously a bit expensive because you've got a piece of technology you have to deal with. If you have a laptop or a well-positioned desktop computer, I don't know how many people have an iMac sitting next to their bed, but if you have a Mac, you can download Wake Up Light, and Wake Up Light will simulate a sunrise for about, I think, 20 minutes or so, unless when I tested it, it did it in 2 minutes because I only gave it 2. But it simulates a sunrise and wakes you up with light, and if you're paranoid that it actually won't wake you up on time, then you can use sound additionally, and it comes with 5 built-in sounds.
That was my main issue. I was like, but what if it doesn't? Yeah.
We've also written up some DIY versions of like simulate the sunrise type things, but this is probably within the reach of more people.
It's about as quick and dirty as you get.
Yeah, I mean it's $4, so it's definitely cheaper than buying the eye mask, but more expensive than doing it yourself. But it's easy, and if you got a laptop and you sit next to your bed, you're in good shape.
Cool. The only cheaper way to do it is to open your window.
Yeah.
What? It's absurd.
Maybe
Who
you're
would
not
do
getting up
that?
with the sunlight. Okay, Whitson, Siine. Tell us about it.
Siine is yet another Android keyboard that you would think is kind of lame, but is really cool.
And it's, for the listeners, Siine.
Siine. The Siine basically just takes things that it's just difficult to say it this way because all Android keyboards try to save you time typing, but this saves you time typing by like adding new features. So one of the features I really like is that it has its own little built-in calendar and kind of clock display, where if you want to type a date or a time to a friend, instead of going to the number view and tapping out the numbers yourself, you just hit the clock button, hit the top of the clock for 12, hit the bottom of it for 30, hit PM, and then it puts it on in the text box.
That's
Same
cool.
thing with the date. You just hit the calendar. You can swipe through the calendar, pick a date, and it'll print out the entire date for you. It has built-in. You can hit a button to bring up a menu that has little icons for like, hey, what's up, like love you, things that you type very regularly.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
Whitson regularly types love you.
Yeah.
Mom.
So you can just hit a button and you can cycle through it to get different variations of the same thing, and of course create your own. So anything that you regularly type, you can even download different versions, different slang versions of things. So if I regularly say to Dotchis, "Yo, what up, homie?"
Which you do.
There's a which I actually do regularly. There's like a pack that for different kinds of slang. My personal favorite part of the keyboard though is the delete gesture, which you just hold the delete key and then kind of swipe around, and it deletes large blocks of text very fast.
I don't. Which one is it? One of the Android keyboards I really liked that I was using, SwiftKey, I think.
Probably.
has a gesture where you just swipe across the keyboard.
Yep, SwiftKey has that.
It's
It's
a full word every time you do that, which...
It's very nice.
How's the typing on Siine?
It looks very much like the ice cream sandwich keyboard, but with slightly bigger buttons, I think. The typing's good, but it is a touch keyboard, you know. If it had swipe in it, built into it, I would be completely sold.
Yeah, you're a swipe lover.
I am a swipe lover. So it's good. It's definitely worth trying out. It's one of those things that you kind of might take a little bit to get used to, but there's not a learning curve, not a big learning curve like there is with some keyboards. You get used to it fairly quickly. It's just something that it doesn't already exist in the Android keyboard sphere, which is nice. So, Siine, go check it out. It's free.
Cool. Okay, and now Adam, Camera Awesome.
Camera Awesome is an iPhone app.
It's awesome.
It's awesome. It actually really does live up to the name, and it's $1. Oh no! Our favorite app, Camera Plus, is $1, which I still think is pretty much the best thing out there in terms of photography. But that has a slight learning curve, whereas Camera Awesome is free and works pretty much like the iPhone camera app with a bunch of extra features under the hood. You can pull down a little thing from the top. Just like the notification drawer. You don't actually pull it down, otherwise you will pull down your notifications drawer. But you can tap it and you can have a golden ratio spiral for
Fibonacci
composition.
spiral?
Yes, for composition purposes, as well as the rule of thirds and some other ones. You get stuff like that, and when you're done taking the picture, you can go in and you can add a bunch of effects. There are the standard filter effects that you can kind of find in pretty much every camera app these days, where you can add photo frames, you can add different color effects, make them look vintage, do a black and white, whatever you want to do. But there's also an awesomizer, which is the first thing, and what I'm going to hopefully remember everything this can do, but it's it can adjust the camera's temperature, or the photo's temperature, sharpness. It can I don't remember the entirety of it, but the contrast will boost, the colors will be more vibrant, and it's just a little slider.
The Awesomizer adjusts the sharpness, temperature, vibrance, and contrast of your photos with one easy slider, is what you said.
There we go. And you can actually adjust those things individually if you want to. If you want to get more in-depth control, but basically you can leave it to just the slider and boost your photos up a little bit.
Is it a little bit like I'm Feeling Lucky in Picasa?
Oh, is that what it is?
It's kind of like a one-click thing to change all of the levels to their optimal whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it like that, or enhance in iPhoto, or clarity in Camera Plus. They all have their own kind of. I think like most camera apps have their ways of doing this. I think the Awesomizer tends to work pretty well because it gives you control if you want it, or none if you don't. The only thing that I had a problem with Camera Awesome was that it was a little bit slow for me. As I understand it, the developers sent me an email and said that they're working very hard on the speed, and that they think that it's operating pretty quick. So it may have been my phone. I was on an iPhone 4, so not the fastest device possible,
but still a pretty fast device.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like it took a little while to load the different effects, and the Awesomizer can take a while because it has to process something that an updated CPU could be very useful for.
Maybe you just need to be more patient.
It's a possibility.
As long as it launches the camera quickly, I'm happy.
Yeah, no, you get
that's where speed really matters.
In terms of taking photos, it is very quick, and so you don't have to worry about that. And you can kind of just set it and forget it if you want to with the processing. But that is Camera Awesome.
All right, well, that is it for this week. Don't forget that you can subscribe to the show and youtube.com/lifehacker. We're going to start putting the podcast out as of this one on SoundCloud. SoundCloud.com/lifehacker. You can find them there. It will be in iTunes, which I do not have a friendly link to give, but it'll be in the show notes. And it'll be both audio and video. So, we're kicking this thing off.
Finally.
Right.
World Wide Web style. All right, so thanks for joining us, and we will see you guys next week.
If you'd like to ask us a question, send us an email at tips+asklhshow@lifehacker.com. Alternatively, leave us a message at 347-687-8109. Try to keep your questions to about 30 seconds so we can keep the show moving. And thanks for watching, listening, or however you're getting this podcast from the internet to your brain.